Number one, does at least some of what you observe influence you? Question number two, is at least some of what you do observable? Okay, well, let's connect the dots. If some of what we do is observable by others, and some of what we observe is influencing us, what does this say is true? We're both influencing and being influenced. We are leaders and followers. Effective leadership of others is primarily a function of effective management of oneself. People who lack self-awareness, of course, do not know. Right? Because if they knew, what would they be? They would be self-aware. And of course, if I don't know myself real well, it's harder to manage myself well. And if I don't manage myself well, it's harder to relate to you real well. It's a weird, peculiar connection. What we find is moral intelligence is, and now let's look at some of these words, is the mental capacity. It's the mental capacity to determine how universal moral principles should be applied to my values, my goals, and my actions. How many of you believe that there are moral principles that apply to humankind, regardless of gender, ethnicity, location on the globe, religious belief? Around the world, and I've been in rooms where we've had people from every continent in the room at the same time. Almost always, we will come up with words that connect these three. Almost every time. Regardless of whether people believe in a higher being or don't, and if they do, whether they are Buddhists or Jewish or Hindus or Muslims or Christians, none of that matters. Atheists, it's all the same. Turns out atheists embrace integrity just as much as people who believe in God. It's not the domain of a religion. Now, by the way, every other word here represents personal choice in this box. I choose what to value. I choose what to believe. I don't choose the principles. I choose what to want. I choose what wants of mine are realistic goals. I get to decide on my sense of purpose. Those are my choices. I get to choose what to think. I get to choose what to do. I get to choose what to say. I don't get to choose how to feel, and I don't get to choose the principles. So when we think about principles, what are things I can improve at? When it comes to responsibility, there are three. One is the responsibility to serve others. Two is the responsibility to admit mistakes. And three is the responsibility or the ability to accept responsibility for my choices. I am responsible for the choices that I make. With compassion, just one principle. Or one principle, one competency, excuse me. Competency is actively caring about the well-being of others. Every one of us can get better at competency. When this happens, by the way, we begin to see people differently than just their behaviors. Because we're all human, we're all FHBs, as my friend Larry Wilson says, fallible human beings, and we will make mistakes. That's a given. But if we know who we are ideally, if we know who each other is ideally, we're more likely to cut each other a little bit of slack when that mistake is made. And we need that. All of us live in our own triangle. We should understand that cognitive thought, emotion, and physical action is all part of the human experience. And they interact with each other. We also need to know that human beings are linear thinkers. What I mean by that is a human being cannot hold any more nor any fewer than one cognitive thought at a time. Smart people do not think more thoughts. They think smarter thoughts. Everybody gets one thought at a time. Emotionally, we're allowed to experience multiple emotions at once. And the interaction between emotion and thought influences our physical experience, our action, both our involuntary and our voluntary action. Now, what we have learned in performance is high performance for organizations and people is all about alignment. And it requires getting in what athletic performers call the zone. In the zone, in the moment, in focus. Mind, body, all in the same room. If you play the freeze game, you will manage yourself better. Because you will find yourself paying attention more than you ever have. How many of you have found in your careers that you can't ever finish your day done with your work? Okay. Once you realize that, then you can quit whenever you want. And that's where we're at. I'm not done, but we're stopping.